It's funny how many people have commented on my choice of the music for the opening credits. Ever since I introduced opening credits and music, I've generally changed the track 4 times a year. I tend to go Christmas until April the 8th, and then I generally tend to change it then until August the 8th, and then I change it a final time at the end of September. And so it's, sorry, at the end of October even. And so it's quite weird that this is the first time I've deliberately chosen a piece of music to cover a particular time for a reason other than just because I like the music. That choice has led people for the first time ever to actually comment on it. So the music is at the moment called Magic Planet, and the reason I've used it to cover this point is actually to do with the Living and Learning series, and that's a series where we look back to what I was doing a decade ago. And in the last semester of my final year at university, which was 10 years ago, I was a music team member at the Tasmanian Little Music Centre, and we were doing, as always, our end of semester showcase. Although I pulled out of it in the end, but I was due to perform, and what had happened was we'd cleared out the music centre and we'd found a working set of tubular bells. I'll never forget it because it was a huge big tripod thing with loads and loads of sort of tubes hanging down. And I had learnt to play the melody line on these bells, and somebody else was going to do the backing for it. And of course, due to the mystery illness, I called it a mystery illness at the time, I scrapped it. And I didn't go through with it in the end. But that's why I've used the music. So I just thought you ought to know that, because it's not actually a living and learning blog this week, but you know, I thought I'd bring that up anyway. The work at the allotment, I now have my days sorted out. I go Wednesday and Thursday after work, straight from work. I go on Sunday before or after lunch, or all the way through if lunch is not going on. And I pass by fleetingly on Monday, and those are the days. And I can only really take my camera on the Sunday or Monday, which is unfortunate because I'm seeing a whole host of wildlife which I'd love to capture on film, and I can't because I go straight from work, you see. So there's no way of being able to get home, get my camera and come back. There's just not enough time. I saw a frog this week, which was rather bizarre. I've seen, I've read books about frogs, seen photos, seen them on the TV. I don't think I've ever actually seen a real frog in real life until it jumped out at me. I think it was Thursday this past week. The other news is all surrounding Pulver House of Birds aviary, and that is that the House of Lamas is now fully formed. We have 3 birds which have fully fledged. The last one is learning how to eat as we speak, and next week on Monday the old nest will be taken away, and that will be it. They will be adults, perfectly able to fend for themselves, except for the fact that the males haven't learnt the song yet because they're too young. and then we wait, and we probably wait for 2 or 3 weeks for their plumage to show exactly which gender they are, and for the males to learn to sing, and then we name them. The other news is that Beryl's chicks are coming along as well. She only laid 3 and all 3 hatched, whereas Flo laid 4 but 1 never hatched. And her chicks are also now have their eyes open, they have their pin feathers growing, and they're making audible noises. We've got another 2 weeks before they supposedly fledge. They may not make it. That's the sad fact of life in that aviary, as unfortunately has been proved yesterday. Beverly's chick died. There was something always wrong with Beverly's chick, and I did make reference in all the videos that it just wasn't developing. It'd been alive for about as long as the fledged chicks of Flo and Lamas, and it still barely had feathers. It was really weird. I finally took it out of the nest. The problem is that I had to tip the nest up to actually get it out, and I didn't want to do that until it was properly formed, but it wasn't forming. Somehow it was still alive. The mother was still feeding it, even though she wasn't incubating it. But when I got it out, it was dreadfully deformed, to be totally honest. And it was mostly around the head. The eyes never opened, and rather than, you know, they're generally sort of 2 little black blobs on the side of its head. Well, this was the entire front of its head, was just like one sort of black ring. And its head was terribly bloated, as if it was sort of filled with water. You have to remember that Beverly is committing incest with one of her brothers, and there may be, this could be because of that, it could be deformity due to genetics. I can't stop them. They just do what they do. We've tried to stop them before. We've tried to, you know, bring them inside where we can keep an eye on them. They will do what they do. I can't. There's nothing I can do about that. And no doubt she will probably try again. But you know, these things happen. They just happen. Maybe when the clutches that we have, you know, developing at the moment, when they all grow up, and if they all grow up, I'll have to give some of them away because I'm not sure I've got enough room. Then there may be one of those that are male that will eventually settle down with Beverly, and you know, that might solve that problem. But that's you know, next year. It's funny because I've been thinking quite a lot lately, as you know, about the 5-year plan and you know, how life changes, and we tend to think like of this thing called a status quo, which is the way things are, a sort of constant, and it's bizarre because if there's one thing that life doesn't really contain, it's anything that goes constant for a long period of time. We get into the habit of thinking that things that have happened, you know, daily have actually happened for a lot longer than they are. I give an example. I've now moved into Markenfield. I now have, you know, schedules that run daily, and they feel like they've been going for years. Well, they haven't. They haven't been going a year and a half yet, because a year and a half ago I wasn't living here. It feels like I've lived here for months and months and months and months now, and it hasn't been a year and a half yet. And that's because we come very, very quickly into a status quo rhythm that we expect will continue forever. And if there's one thing we know, it's that life can change really, really quickly. In an instant, someone, you know, can get killed, and, you know, that can change your life forever. You know, in an instant you might have an accident, and it might change the direction of your life. Bear in mind that because life can change so quickly, the one thing that you should always do is make the most of absolutely everything, because you don't know, if you're honest with yourself, whether you'll do the same things that you've always done tomorrow or not. And you don't know that the people that you are with at the moment, and the people you love and care, whether they will be with you for much longer. You just don't know. So at least if you make the most of absolutely everything, then you won't have regrets.